Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you're on mute.
Okay. Yeah. So we're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. We're on text 40. And at text 40, it's October 16th, 2020. Rainam namaskritya naram chavinotamam devim saraswatim jasam tatojam udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesh Rabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yutamashvaki Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by serving the pure devotee representative of Bhagavatam, all that is troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed, and loving devotional service to the transcendent Lord, who is praised by the choicest Vedic verses, is irrevocably established in the heart. Text 40. Vishnu Nu Dhira Gananam Katama Arhati Iha Ya Partivani Api Kavi Vimame Rajamsi Chaskampa Ya Svarahasa Askalata Tri Prishtam Yasmat Tri Samya Sadanat Urukampayanam Vishnur Nuvirya Gananam Katamor Hatiha Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi Chaskambaya Svarasas Kalata Tri Prishtam Yasma Tri Samya Sadanadu Kampayanam Vishnur Nuvirya Gananam Katamor Hatiha Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi Chaskambaya Svarahasas Kalata Tri Prishtam Yasmat Tri Samya Sadanad Urukampayanam Vishnur Nuvirya Gananam Katamor Hatiha Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi Chaskambaya Svarahasas Kalata Tri Prishtam Yasmat Tri Samya Sadanad Urukampayanam
Vishnur Nuvirya Gananam Katamo Arhitam
Vishnur Nuvirya Gananam Katamor Hatiha
Ya Pativani Apika Viravimani Rajansi
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Jaskambaya Svaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Jaskambaya Svaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Yasmatri Samya Sadanat Guru Kampayanam
Yasmatri Samya Sadanaru Kampayanam
Vishnu Nuvirya Gananam Katamoritiha
Vishnu Nuvirya Gananam Katamor Atiyam
Ya Partivani Apikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Kaskambaya Swarahasa Kalata Tripristintam
Chaskambaya Svaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Yasmatri Samya Sadanaru Kampayanam
Vishnurnuvirya Gananam Katamoratiha
Vishnunuvirya Gananam Katamorhatiha
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Shaskambhaya Svaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Chaskambaya Swaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam Vishnurnuvirya Gananam Katamorhatiha
Vishnurnuvirya Gananam Katamoratiha
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Chaskambaya Swaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Shaskambaya Swaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Vishnu Nuvirya Gananam Katamoratiya
Vishnurnuvirya Gananam Katamoratiha
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Shaskambaya Swaha Saskalata Triprishtam
Chaskambaya Swaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Vishnunuvirya Gananam Katamoratiha
Vishnuruvirya Gananam Katamor Atiha
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Jaskambaya Svaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Jaskambaya Svaraha Saskalata Triprishtam
Yasmatri Samya Sadana Durukampayanam
Yasmatri Samya Sadanat Kampayanam
Vishnurnuvirya Gananam Katamoratiha
Vishnurnuvirya Gananam Katamor Hatiyaha
Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi
Ya Parthivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi.
Chakskamba Yasvarasha Rahasha Kalata Triprishtam
Taskambaya Svarahasaskalata Triprishtam.
Yasma Trishtam Yasadanadu Kampayanam
Yasmat Trisamya Sadanadhu Kampayanam. Vishnu,
Vishnu,
of Lord Vishnu,
of Lord Vishnu,
Nu,
but
Virya,
Virya,
prowess,
prowess,
Gananam,
Granam,
in the matter of accounting,
in the matter of accounting,
Katama,
Katama,
who else?
who else?
Arhati,
Arhati
is able to do it.
is able to do it.
Iha,
Iha,
in this world.
in this world.
Ya,
Ya,
one who.
one who.
Partivani,
Partivani,
the atoms.
the atoms.
Api,
Api,
also.
also.
Kavi,
Kavi,
great scientist.
great scientist.
Vimame,
Vimame,
might have counted.
might have counted.
Rajamsi,
Rajamsi,
particles.
particles.
Chaskambha,
Chaskambha,
could catch.
could catch.
Ya,
Ya,
one who.
one who.
Swarahasa,
Svarahasa,
by his own leg.
by his own leg.
Askalata,
Askalata,
without being hampered.
without being hampered.
Triprishtam,
Triprishtam,
the topmost planetary space.
the topmost planetary space.
Yasmat,
Yasmat,
by which.
by which.
Trisamya,
Trisamya,
the neutral state of the three modes.
the neutral state of the three modes.
Sadanat,
Saranat,
up to that place.
up to that place.
Urukampayanam,
Urukampayanam,
moving very greatly.
moving very greatly.
Translation. Who can describe completely the prowess of Vishnu? Even the scientist, who might have counted the particles of the atoms of the universe, cannot do so, because it is he only who in his form of Trivikram moved his leg effortlessly beyond the topmost planet Satyaloka, up to the neutral state of the three modes of material nature, and all were moved. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The highest scientific advancement of the material scientist is atomic energy, but the material scientist is not able to have an estimation of the particles of atoms contained in the whole universe. But even if one is able to count such atomic particles or is able to roll up the sky like one's betting, even then one is unable to estimate the extent of the prowess and energy of the Supreme Lord. He is known as Trivikram because once, in his incarnation of Vamana, he expanded his leg beyond the highest planetary system, Satyaloka, and reached the neutral state of the modes of nature called the covering of the material world. There are 7 layers of material coverings over the material sky, and the Lord could penetrate even those coverings. With his toe, he made a hole through which the water of the causal ocean filters into the material sky, and the current is known as the sacred Ganges, which purifies the planets of the 3 worlds. In other words, no one is equal to the transcendently powerful Vishnu. He is omnipotent, and no one is equal to or greater than him. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatu Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Vishnu Nuvirya Gananam Katamor Hatiha. Ya Partivanya Pikavir Vimame Rajamsi Taskambaya Swarahasas Kalata Tripishtam Yasmat Trisam Yasadana Kampayanam. Who can describe completely the prowess of Vishnu? Even the scientist who might have counted the particles of the atoms of the universe cannot do so, because it is he only who in his form of Trivikram moved his leg effortlessly beyond the topmost planet, Satyaloka, up to the neutral state of the three modes of material nature, and all were moved. Okay, so in the verse, Lord Brahma is saying that even the scientists who might have counted all the atoms in the universe, and then the purport, Prabhupada says, but the material scientist is not able to have an estimation of the particles of atoms contained in the whole universe. So Brahma's saying, well, maybe it's possible, but Prabhupada's saying, no. Now, even in material science, they're agreeing it's not possible, because like they have some estimation of the number of atoms in the universe, whatever, 10 to the 93rd power, or whatever it is, much more than that. But then they say, but actually, that's just a tiny fraction, because there's what's called dark matter. Like most of the matter in the universe, we don't even know about. We just have a sense that it's there. So we actually have no clue. They kind of say that. So from a young age, I was interested in like cosmology and you know, like I remember at Woodrow Wilson Junior High School on Cotman Avenue in Philadelphia. I had a library card. I was in 7th grade, and if I remember correctly, the first book I took out on my own was a biography of Albert Einstein, and I was very much interested in relativity and cosmology and universal studies and things like that. And actually, Prabhupada talks about Einstein's theory of relativity. He says Einstein more or less got it right, and we understood if we learned something about Vedic cosmology and astronomy. And there's like 14 time dimensions in each universe corresponding to the planetary systems. We're all familiar with, like, Brahma turned around just for a split nanosecond, and it was 1 year on Earth, right? Mahavishnu's one exhalation is 311 trillion, 40 billion Earth years. Now, okay, so this imagery is there a lot in the Bhagavatam, that even if scientists could calculate all the atoms, essentially this is not about atoms, chemistry, physics, cosmology. Although those are fun topics. Essentially, it's not about that. Essentially, this is about qualities. This is about qualities, because this is given as an imagery, a comparison, right? So they count all the atoms of the universe. But the idea is to just focus. The idea is to just bring us to focus on Krishna playing his flute. The idea is it's about, well, here the term prowess or qualities, energies, okay? And this is very key. So the whole cosmology, the physics of it, the atoms, that's just to give, like yesterday, Teja Prakash Prabhu in his class, he talked about, according to modern science, the size of the universe is like 90 billion light years, something very vast, inconceivable. And of course, even that is just one relatively small universe that's like a mustard seed in one bag of mustard seeds and like that. Okay. And so this verse about it says, and then it gives one example of Vamanadev. Another name of Vamanadev is Trivikram. Trivikram, 3 steps. Krama is step. With 3 steps, he covered the entire universe. And then he stuck his toe through the coverings into the Viraj river, and then that's how the Ganges, that's what it means. The Ganges come from the lotus feet of Krishna. Because Vamanadev, Trivikram, he stuck his toe through the universe to the river between the material and spiritual worlds, and then the river started leaking through, touching his feet, and that's how the Ganges came. And it's described in the Bhagavatam that the Ganges is a female, and she had immense force, and there was fear that her force would like destroy some of the planets. So Lord Shiva got involved, and he let the Ganges come through his hair, and he actually was in some pain because she had a lot of force, but then he did buffer the force. These are okay. So these are fantastic pastimes. So it's about qualities. That the principle, the true principle is absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. Absolute is sentient. That's a poem from Prabhupada written to his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So the absolute has qualities, right, in its fullness. Because, so here, like even if we count the number, the qualities, the prowess, the energies, the pastimes of the Supreme are far, far greater than the number of atoms in the universe, or all the universes multiplied by quadrillions. Okay. See, now that's different. That's different than the conception of the absolute. The qualities of the absolute number less than one atom. See, because all of these non-personal, impersonal, Brahman is absolute, right? So the essence there is that the absolute, when we have full realization of the absolute, that means realization that the absolute has 0 qualities, 0 energies. Okay, so it's opposed to Vaishnavism. So this is such a key point, right? So Brahman realization means realization of the supreme truth without energies, without form, without prowess, without pastimes. Okay, so there's a keystone verse in the Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter of 1st canto. Vedanti tat tatva vidas tatvam yadganam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. So it's described that learned transcendentalists, realized realize the absolute or they shabdite, Bhagavan iti shabdite. They call it. They have, okay, there's 3 names for the absolute. There's many names, but they can be categorized as 3. Brahman, okay, and Brahman is the absolute without qualities, Paramatma, the Lord in the heart, and Bhagavan, that's the absolute with full possession. Bhagavan means full possession of all qualities, all opulences. That's what Bhagavan means. Okay? And so those who are searching after the impersonal, the non-personal, which means no qualities, the credit there is that we're tired of trying to be happy in material life. We've lost our taste to try to be happy in material life like that. So we want an escape from that. Okay, but Inera Mindaksha Vimukti Maninas Twayasta Bhavada Vishuddha Buddhayo. Aruya creature in a pram padam tatapatanti dona drita yushmadangraya. But even if they achieve complete liberation from material desires, which is a great spiritual achievement, the Brahman realization, because it lacks qualities, it lacks energy, it's not going to be satisfying for the soul, because we are full of personality and qualities and energy and color and pastimes. And so eventually, just like an object floating in space can float for a while, but eventually it's going to be attracted to some planet or another. So such an impersonally realized soul, if they don't develop devotional service to Bhagavan, they will come back down to maybe some relatively sattvic material desires and like that. So qualities, just like, okay, so the Bhagavan realization includes Brahman and Paramatma. Just like, let's say if, let's say if like there's a concert, okay? And then, so then someone who doesn't have music appreciation might say, well, what did you think of the concert? And I might say, it was good, I liked it. Okay. So now someone with music appreciation, which isn't me, so I won't do a good job of role playing, but someone with music appreciation might go, oh yes, the 3-part harmony with the horns and the strings and the piano and the texture of the vocals, and we could see the someone with music appreciation appreciates the qualities, okay? So there's a richer appreciation. And we can imagine for the composer, for the musicians, if we follow the analogy here, they're getting more satisfaction, they're getting more fulfillment from the person who can appreciate the nuance of, let's say if we go to the Vedic music, someone who can appreciate all the ragas and all the subtleties of like that. So the composer himself and the conductor is getting a lot more fulfillment about, oh yes, you notice the texture of the sounds when this came in with the tenor voice, compared to someone like me who might go, I heard sounds, it was good, I like music or something, okay? So now it's the same concert, right? And this is important, right? It's the same concert, right? So the person just like, it was good, there were sounds. And then the person who appreciates all the fine points, they're hearing the same concert, but one is the one who's appreciating the qualities gets richer fulfillment, okay? And so this way, it's not like Brahman and Bhagavan and Paramatma, they're not different, they're non-different. They're different and they're non-different. Okay, so it's according to our perception. An example Prabhupada gives, just like, well, it's the same example, but I mean the same principle, different metaphor. And just like if we're on a road and in the distance on the mountain there's a town, a city on the top of a mountain. Okay, from a distance I just perceive there's this it's just this sort of homogeneous gray cloud, something, okay? And as I get closer, I can see, there's more and more detail. Oh, there's buildings there. And if I really go inside, if I drive inside the city up the mountain and go, there's Tommy Smith, and there's the mayor of the town, and there's parks, and there's a playground for children, right? So it's always the same town. it's always the same town, it's always the same city. There's no difference. But according to my perspective, I can appreciate more quality or no quality. So Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, it's the same absolute. And according to our perspective, we have different realizations of the absolute. So a verse like this is emphasizing the absolute, but so it's all one and it's not all one, because there's also a hierarchy, right? So again, someone who has music appreciation can appreciate all the details of the music. That includes, there was sound, it was good, I liked it. It includes that, okay? So there is a hierarchy. So Bhagavan realization includes Brahman and Paramatma realization, yeah? And so this is very Vaishnav. This gets to the essence of the Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva, I think we're all familiar with his pastimes, and he compiled all the Vedas. He wasn't satisfied. He wasn't satisfied. And then Narada Muni, his spiritual master, could empathically read his heart, gave him guidance. Vyasadeva goes into a trance of pure Raganuga Bhakti Yoga Namanasi Samyak Pranite Male Apasha Pusham Purnam Mayam Chatara Pashvim. And then he sees Bhagavan. And so the whole Bhagavatam is Vyasadeva's realization. And he describes there's three aspects to the absolute. That's his vision. Bhagavan, which includes Paramatma and Brahman, Brahmagyoti. And then there's, on the back of Krishna, there is his energy Maya. Okay, so there's three aspects to the absolute. They're non-different. Sometimes it's important to make the distinctions, sometimes not. And I remember hearing a lecture not too long ago, and it's pretty early, like New York, 66, and Prabhupada's sometimes talking about kind of like spiritual culture compared to what he was experiencing in New York, for example. And he was saying, yes, like in India, there's this thing called the Kumbh Mela, and in 1966, not too many people heard about it. And Prabhupada was, and he was talking about sannyasis from different groups, like that. And some are from the devotee group, and some are from the Mayavadi group, but it doesn't matter. But they all come for the spiritual purpose, right? So, sometimes Prabhupada makes it like it does matter, right? But here it doesn't matter. They're all dedicated to not live a material life. There's a place in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, there is no conflict between the personalist and the impersonalist. There's no conflict, right? Like, okay, some might have perspective from 40 miles away from the mountain. Some have perspective, but okay, it's all one in a sense. Sometimes Prabhupada says there's the personalist and the impersonalist, and there's the devotee. Meaning, devotee is not in any spiritual political camp. It's not like this is my camp. This is a true devotee appreciates all aspects of the absolute, and the jiva is not an aspect of the absolute. It's an important point. Okay, so Vedanti Tattva Vidas Tattvam Yajganam Advayam. Learned transcendentalists call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Nowhere in that verse or anywhere is the absolute described as jiva. Okay, so the idea that the jiva is the absolute, the jiva is an energy of the absolute. The idea that the jiva is the absolute. This is not Vedic conclusion. So philosophy is you've forgotten that you are God. You just need to meditate for 6 months. But for the special bargain, right, $250, I can bring it down to 3 months. Okay, so the jiva is not the absolute. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasabha Bricha. The jiva is a servant of Bhagavan. a servant of the absolute. So this is an important distinction. This is an important distinction. And because we want to do our God project, we want to be absolute, either materially or through some concocted spiritual philosophy, then that's the source of our misery. Source of our misery. So it's described. Vedanti tattva vidas tattva myatgam avyayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite tattvadadana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashantya mani chatmanam bhakti shuddhagritaya. And the learned transcendentalist, the person who is humble in their attempts at self-realization, they realize the absolute. How? By performing bhakti yoga, bhakti shuddhagritaya, by performing bhakti yoga in a way that is aligned with Vyasadeva, in a way that is aligned with the authorities, those fully realized souls, starting with Krishna himself, through Srila Vyasadeva, through the six Goswamis, through Srila Prabhupada. Atabu mir trija shreshtas varnashama vibhagasha sunusti tasya dharmasya samsiddhir hari toshinam. So that's described, very practical. Whatever, we're a teacher, we're a farmer, we're married, we're not married, whatever our situation in the world, the highest achievement we can accomplish through fulfilling our responsibilities is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Samsiddhir hari toshinam. Whatever situation we're in, okay, how can I fulfill my responsibilities in a way that I'm pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And we have plenty of reference points to know the extent to which I am or am not pleasing Bhagavan, the possessor of all transcendental qualities. And that comes from Vyasadeva through Srila Prabhupada. We have reference points. So it's described in the Brahma Samhita. Pantastu koti satavatsara sampragamyo vayuratapi manasa muni pungavanyam. So pyastiyat prapadasinya vichintyatatve Govinda madi pusham tamaham bhajami. That verse says, similar to the cosmology we've been speaking about, that the Gyanis, they may speculate and analyze for 90 billion years, for lifetimes of universes. The yogis may try to control their breath for lifetimes after lifetimes. And if they're successful, then they'll get a glimpse of the radiant energy from the toenail of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Meaning, if they're successful, then they'll come to a glimpse of the qualities of Bhagavan. Okay, so this is because what's the idea? What's the goal of our spiritual endeavors? Okay, is the goal to realize that which is devoid of all energy, all quality? If we think about it, okay, it's always nice to relieve ourselves of material misery. But then if the goal is that's not going to satisfy us as spirit souls. We want personality, we want form, we want music, we want dancing, we want food, we want quality, we want energy, we want prowess, right? And so if the spiritual goal shuts all that down, we can do whatever mental gymnastics we want. We will be frustrated. Alola Chandrakala Satvana Malyavam Siratnandagaram Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Shibangala Litani Yata Prakasham Govinda Madi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is a fat flower garland beautified by the moon locket, with hands bedecked with beautiful jeweled ornaments and holding the flute, who always revels in pastimes of love, and whose beautiful, eternal, graceful, threefold bending form of Shama Sundar is eternally manifest. So that's all missing. That's all missing in a conception of the absolute that lacks qualities. Angani yasya sakalendriya vritti pashanti panti kalyanti chiram jaganti ananda chinmaya sarujvala vigrahasya Govinda mari purusham tamaham bhajami. That Bhagavan, with any limb, with any organ, he can perform the functions of all the organs. He's ever manifest in his eternal dazzling splendor. Okay, so this verse is about it's about qualities. It's about qualities, and it's about the unlimited qualities of the Supreme, and the unlimited qualities of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, much greater than, much more numerous than the number of atoms in the whole material creation, in all the universes. Okay, and again, so we, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kleshodya gatarastasam, avyakta sakta chetasam, avyakta hi gatir dukher dehadvadbhir avapyate. And so Krishna says, one can try to realize the absolute without qualities, the Brahman feature. In one sense, it's so much less satisfying. I mean, it's more satisfying than indulgence in matter, but it's so much less satisfying than is someone who's expert in music appreciation, to go back to that analogy. And Krishna says, not only is it so much less satisfying, I mean, but it's really hard. It's really hard for the embodied soul, because we want to engage our senses. We want to eat, we want to dance, we want to communicate, we want to relate, right? And so that's why Krishna is saying, yeah, you can go that path. And if you're sincere, Bahunam Jadmanan Mante, Ganaban Man Prapatyate, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samo Atmasudulaba. If you're sincere, it'll eventually come to Bhakti Yoga. But why not just follow what Prabhupada's given, the Bhakti elevator, and just from wherever we're at, whatever mixture of the modes of nature, engage the senses, engage our qualities in the service of the possessor of all qualities, Bhagavan, the possessor of all qualities. Vishnurnu viryagananam katamor hatiha ya partivanya pikavir vimame rajamsi taskambayas farahasas galatachi pishtam yasmatri samya sadanad urukampayanam. Who can describe completely the prowess of Vishnu? Even the scientist who might have counted the particles of the atoms of the universe cannot do so, because it is he only who in his form of Trivikram moved his leg effortlessly beyond the topmost planet Satyaloka up to the neutral state of the three modes of material nature, and all were moved. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your presence and attention. I welcome any comments or questions or sharing. Daru Brahma.
Can you hear me now, right? Okay. I guess, what was it? You were saying, I like the point. It made me think of another one I was saying the other day where, let's say, well, it's funny because, people say, well, did Krishna create this first or that, or, and I remember Charity saying, my guru was saying, it's like a watch where, some people want to know, how it works, or a clock, but frankly, I just want to know that it works. I don't really care how it's put together with all the little gears and all that kind of stuff, And I think that's for most people. There's a few rare souls who want that kind of info, but it's rare. Most of us are in the stage of we're glad it works, and we don't really care what was the order he made it and exactly, you know what I mean? And similarly, the same could go for, well, here's the example of, let's say, an artist. Now, some people really are, and you did too, are are into, like, say, the whole thing of, did he, well, when they painted that, did they mix waters and colors, or did they use a brush, or did they use a thing? And that's an aspect, but frankly, for 99% of, as you said, appreciating these varieties, or most people, that they really aren't interested in that stuff. They're more interested in, just like, how's it look, the mixture of the colors, as you said, the mixture of the sounds for the music, but how exactly the order that things were done, that really doesn't matter to 99% of the people will really not be interested. So anyhow, I just want to, because it reminded me that even like, well, I got to throw out Gary Larson, my favorite ever of cartoonist who did the far, what's it called? What's it called?
Doonesbury?
No. No, Gary Larson, he did the one with everyone knows him. The Far Side. Everyone knows the Far Side, right? Even you, dear Govinda.
I've heard of it.
Oh my God. Well, here's a classic one. Early vegetarians returning from the hunt, and they got like these cavemen, 3 of them with a big carrot cropped on their shoulder as they're returning from the hunt. The early cavemen returning from the hunt, big carrot. Okay. Anyhow, he's very funny about making fun of vegetarians and God, even very funny with God. Anyhow, even I'm a big fan. I would say the more you really care about him, you would want to know, where's he from? Where did he grow up and stuff? And if you don't, and all you just simply laugh at the jokes, and that's nice, but you're not appreciating them. Similar with Krishna. If you really care about Krishna, you want to know, where's he from? What did he do? Not just, oh, I've heard of Krishna. It's just a degree thing that kind of reveals where you're at, how much you really are. You're 10 times a fan or just a beginner or whatever. Anyhow, I hope I'm making some sense. If you can pick out any of that there. Do you get any of that?
Thanks for sharing, Dhira, Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, I mean, what I'm getting from your sharing is like, yeah, then the more we get a taste of the qualities, that's what's described with Shukadev Goswami, Atmaramash Tamunayo Nirgvanti Apirukrami. I can't say he Harer Bhaktir, but Itam's
Itam Bhutam Harer,
that's the Atmarama verse.
Right.
And so Shukadev Goswami, he was Brahman realized, but he had no envy in his heart. So then he heard a few verses from the Bhagavatam, and he wanted more and more. So just like what I understand you're saying is, so the more we get a taste to hear about the prowess, the pastimes, the qualities of Bhagavan, then we want more and more, because it's so satisfying. We're never satisfied. And that's why we're eager to read Bhagavatam for the 5th time, 6th time, over and over again. That's spiritual, ever increasing. Thank you for sharing, Dhira.
Thank you. I know it's a little spacey, but anyhow, thanks for trying to pick out the value.
Lakshmi Priya.
Well, I just also, hi everybody, Hare Krishna. Dhira, I appreciate always your enthusiasm when you share, by the way. So I got caught up in his and I might have lost my train of thought, but I just wanted to share that when we were first reading this verse, I went into that mode of, oh, this is a complicated one. It might be over my head. And I was starting to lose faith in whether I could follow the lesson today. And then I was, of course, I stuck with it. And it seems like I was feeling a lot of appreciation that we have this community so that someone like David can bring it to us so that I can stick with it, because I was just thinking about how I would feel if I was trying to read the Bhagavatam on my own and how this verse would have been like, I don't even know what this is. But then once you go there, and I was thinking, wow, if this was the verse I was having to lead, I'm not sure where I would go with it. I don't have any depth to draw on in those areas. But then it made perfect sense once you explained it. So I wanted to appreciate that. And I was thinking that this question was on our initiation question list, and I think I left it blank because I was like, I'm not sure I know only tiny bits and pieces of those three elements. And so I wrote, when you were speaking, dear Govinda, I was thinking, this is why I love bhakti, because it's that gradual thing that sometimes is like, this is a lot. And I go to like this sort of, not resentment, but kind of like, I wish that I had fallen in love with a spiritual path that was easier. But because I love mornings and I like getting up early, that always keeps me, like, it's always present. And then I love, I was feeling this morning that love and passion for that process of, at first it looks like, oh no, I don't know where we're going here. And then it's like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And so if we didn't have these morning groups together and the Savatov and the Bhakti group that we have, it's like, I can see how I would have definitely put this down and not gone very far with it, because it's just complicated unless it's, sort of explained in a watered down way that I don't mean to, that as an insult, as a compliment, that it's broken down into pieces that come back at us in a natural way that we can apply it to our lives. I hear a lot of people say this frequently at these classes, but today I was especially feeling it and especially grateful for this class, this group. So thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Lakshmi Priya. I appreciate your appreciation for our Sangha, for our association. And yeah, I wouldn't use the term watered down. I hope I didn't water anything down. My attempt is to simplify, like with all of this, like there's, like with any verse or purport, any principle, there's a time not to be simplistic where we ignore the nuances, but there's a time to simplify, and sometimes there's a time to expound upon the nuance and the complexity, both. And so, there's letters from Prabhupada I like to reference and quote a lot, where Prabhupada emphasizes. He goes, one letter, 1972, he writes to a disciple, he said that the highest development of your Krishna consciousness will be where you're able to present any of these principles, these universal principles of Bhakti Yoga in such a way that anyone gets it, in such a way that anyone can appreciate positively. It means whether we're talking to an 8-year-old child, or we're talking to scholars of philosophy at a university program, or we're talking to yogis at the yoga center, or we're talking to people in the Savatov community, or whatever it is, that we're so deeply realized in the principles that through Super Soul and through our sincere effort, we find words and vibrations to communicate so people get it. So for me, it's right. It's not watering down. It's sometimes we want to get the essence and communicate it according to time, place, circumstance, and person. And I appreciate your presence and sharing, Lakshmi Priya. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Palatable.
Yeah, in a way that's palatable. Nice. That's from process in a way that's palatable. Anandini.
Yes, I have a comment and question. I liked your class and what you shared about cosmology and then the rest of it. And I was thinking this morning, how come in the Srimad Bhagavatam it seems often that the word Krishna is not mentioned often. It's more Vishnu. And I was wondering how come the name that's used is Vishnu? Is it because all the incarnations of Krishna that appear in the material world they come through Vishnu. And so that's like a common question. And I was wondering is because like Krishna is described in the 10th canto, and it's recommended to read from 1 to 9 and then 10. Is it like a gradual approach to Krishna in the spiritual realm, that we learn about him in the material realm, how it's more like tangible or relatable for us? And then like that's the preparation to come to Krishna in the spiritual world. I don't know, am I making sense?
I believe you are. Yes. My understanding is, yeah, everything you say is valid and true. Everything you say is valid and true. And Krishna is often referred to as the original Vishnu, the source of Vishnu. And so, yes, so everything leads up to the 10th canto, which is called the Summum Bonum, which is by far the longest canto. And the 10th canto is all about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And everything else before it, that's the energies of Krishna. And so everything leads to the 10th canto. At the same time, like if we look at the meta view of the Bhagavatam, it's not like we need to wait for the 10th canto to unravel the mystery. For example, right in the first canto, for example, in chapter 3 of the first canto is similar to chapter 7 of the second canto. The Bhagavatam describes like 25, 30 major incarnations. And right towards the end of that chapter 3 of the first canto, Sutta Goswami described Ete Chamsa Klapumsa Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. Not Vishnu's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. So he says, and in that chapter, unlike this chapter, Sutta Goswami describes all the Vishnu incarnations, as well as Nrsimhadev and Ramachandra, Vamanadev, Rahadev. And so, but he makes it very clear, Krishna is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the source. Krishna is the original Bhagavan. He's the source of the Vishnu incarnations. So we do have that picture from the beginning. The very first verse, the first line of the first verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Vasudevaya, it's Vyasadeva, the invocation, the first line of the first verse. Vasudeva means this. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the son of Vasudeva. So Krishna is there throughout, very strongly, and then the 10th canto is all about Krishna. Also, a lot of times, see, when we're talking about material creation, material cosmology, Vishnu is the form of Krishna that deals with the material world. You might say, whereas Brahma, he has his beautiful Brahma Samhita, Govinda, Goloka Vrindavan, the cows, the Kalpavriksha trees, all of that. But Brahma he's working closely, he's serving closely with Vishnu, the three prime demigods, Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. So Vishnu is the Vishnu Tattva incarnation, expansion of Krishna that deals with the material world. That's why often when Vaishnavas, devotees, they come to purity, often their direct contact is Vishnu. Their direct contact is Vishnu. So that's all it all confirms and expands on what you guessed.
And you said like that the whole Bhagavatam, it's Vyasadev's realization of, and did you say Vishnu or Narayan or Krishna, or does it make a difference?
In a sense, it doesn't make a difference. In a sense, because it all departure avidhita santarama vipechiti payate vivitahetu samana dharma yastadrik evahit Vishnu taya vibhati Govinda madi purusham tamaham bhajami. That they're just like, you might, like Krishna is the original candle, and then that original candle might light a second, a third, a thousandth candle, and all the candles have equal power. There's another sense in which there are some qualities only Krishna has, but we're not talking about that. So all the candles are equal power still. So they're all one. It doesn't matter which candle, whether it's Bhagavan, Ryan, Vishnu, Nrsimhadev. At the same time, there is an original candle. So in a sense, it makes a difference and it doesn't make a difference. And so Vyasadev's vision is clearly of Krishna, and including Krishna's expansions as Balaram, as Sankarsana, as Narayan, as Vamanadev, as the three Vishnu personalities. So Vyasadev's realization includes it all: the Brahman, the Paramatma, and Krishna as the original Bhagavan, Svayam Bhagavan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anandini.
Thinking of Anandini's question, and it makes, I was thinking about also how one will respond to Anandini's response. And what came to my mind is that in the Bhagavatam, when the Lord interacts with his devotees, they are Vishnu. They are like Vishnu Tattva, but also they are usually expansion of the Lord. And then in the Bhagavatam, Lord Sri Krishna only interacts with his eternal associate of Vrindavan. And that, like that. And as I was thinking like that, my brain was going there when to think of Anandini's question. I thought, well, that's really the special mercy of Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. And like Krishna doesn't interact with conditioned soul. He does that through his Vishnu form and his different emanation, different incarnation. But he doesn't interact with conditioned soul, versus Lord Chaitanya, who is also Krishna himself. He does interact with conditioned soul. And through thinking of Anandini's question, I began to feel really gratitude for that form of Lord Chaitanya. Of course, Srila Prabhupada glorified Lord Chaitanya a lot, and we are followers of Lord Chaitanya. But in that specific angle of looking at it, it's very exceptional. It's very, very exceptional that Lord Chaitanya, with Krishna himself, is interacting with conditioned soul, and is interacting with us too. Versus really our interaction, many times we say, oh, it's Krishna's mercy, or Krishna does that, Krishna does that. And really, if we were more precise, we will say Vishnu, because Krishna doesn't really interact with the material energy at all. Yeah. And we can say always Lord Chaitanya.
Thank you, Malini. Thanks for highlighting that special compassionate, merciful form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Special. Thank you. Prabhu. Yes. Parampara, yes.
Parampara.
Yeah.
In the class you were speaking about, Brahman, and I appreciate very much, because where to go with this class, and then we went to qualities, and the qualities, that this is about. There's so many qualities, even if you count the number of atoms in the whole universe, Krishna has so many more qualities than that. And then the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, are saying, you know, God has no qualities. And how ridiculous is that? So that God would have less qualities than the material world.
Yeah.
You know, so how ridiculous is that? I'm not appreciating that. And the same, and then you were saying that no energies also. You're saying like so.
No energies.
So Brahman realization is like no energies. And I was understanding Brahman as the energy, as like the as energy, as like Bhagavan's energy. So how to connect those, and that it's actually no energies. I thought it was all of the energies in one, like oneness.
Yeah. That conception says there's no energetic source, and there's no varieties of energies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's no jiva, because the jiva is a separate energy. There's no material energy. So it's just, we might just say it's one undifferentiated energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's no plural energy. There's one undifferentiated energy with no qualities other than the absence of material quality.
Mm-hmm.
No qualities and no activities, no form, no personality. So it's one undifferentiated energy.
Yeah. So no variety, no plural. And then you're saying about Bhagavan Paramatma and Brahman, Brahmagyoti, so that it's in one sense we can look at it that it's all the same, and it's up to our perspective. Like it's the same concert.
Same concert.
And it's our perspective, our relationship, our consciousness.
Yeah, and how qualified are we to receive the depths of qualities?
And just so I can I see that like Bhagavan in Brahman, because it's like, well, do you see the person or do you see the white light kind of thing? Like that's, I can understand that. And then, but with Paramatma, I'm trying to understand Paramatma within that like framework, like how we might not be able to differentiate Paramatma from Bhagavan. It's very obvious to me, light versus the blinding light, effulgence of the Lord. Like
yes,
it's very obvious. I wonder if you could help understand Paramatma.
Yes. Then okay, well then, as like the yogi who realizes that they are not matter, and they realize the Brahman. Okay, and then as they continue, if they're not envious, then they will connect. They will connect with Vishnu, with the source of all energies. The Paramatma is Kshirodakashai Vishnu in their heart.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll connect with that, and that's like the beginning of personalism. They'll have an inclination to connect. We call that the highest guidance within. To connect with the highest guidance within, and then there's not the variety of activities like in Goloka Vrindavan or like that, but there's form there, and so the realized yogi will begin to turn to that higher intelligence within, and that's Paramatma. And Paramatma is controlling the material and spiritual energies within the material sphere. And then a pitfall is the yogi can start thinking, oh, I am that super soul.
And that's like Brahman. That's more like a Brahman. That's like looking at Paramatma through the Brahman lens.
It goes to another form of oneness.
And it's like I have some experience of Paramatma, and I think, oh, I am Paramatma.
Yeah, right.
Like that.
Yeah, right. Whereas the yogi who's fully pure in heart turns to Paramatma, and just like sees the greatness, sees the greatness,
Mhm.
and then develops. Oh, I want to serve this personality. I want to serve this personality, and then that leads to Bhagavan realization.
Yes. Sorry, are you done? So that would be that that I am Paramatma. That would be like I'm like kind of like I'm the controller.
Yeah.
Like is you're observing the energies and how they're acting on material nature, and through that introspection, like you was saying, from the Brahman, you're looking at it and perceiving the energies acting on material nature, and I think that that's me controlling material nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ladini Shakti.
You mentioned Dhira Govinda Prabhu during your class Albert Einstein and his relativity theory. And you do it sometimes. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with it here, but Einstein actually read Bhagavad Gita. On the back cover of Czech Bhagavad Gita is a quote from Albert Einstein. It sells the Bhagavad Gita well. He probably didn't read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. But I want to read the quote because I found it.
Yeah.
So, when I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. I have made the Bhagavad Gita as the source of my inspiration and guide for the purpose of scientific investigation and formation of my theories. So, Einstein got it right in Bhagavad Gita. So,
Thanks for that. So you include that like it's on the cover or in an inside page of the Czech Gita?
ISKCON included it.
Oh, got it in the Czech. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. Because I knew Einstein read the Gita, and I'm very moved to hear his exact quote. Yeah, so it's like he didn't see it as like some simplistic religious mythology or something like that. You can see he was deeply moved intellectually, spiritually. Yeah, of that same generation, Oppenheimer, who was also very influential in developing the atomic energy, as was Einstein. Oppenheimer was there at the test of the first atomic bomb. They tested, I guess, in the desert in New Mexico before Japan. And so when Oppenheimer saw that, he quoted Krishna. He quoted Krishna saying, "Time I am, destroyer of all worlds." So yeah, so many of these great scientists, they've even from the West, they have so much appreciation. So thanks for sharing them.
Right, but I think Albert Einstein was really unhappy when he realized that his scientific researches led to atomic bombs.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing, yeah, right. Because if we don't have the one in front of the zeros, then we can create all these intelligent things, but then they'll be used by the military industrial complex for very lower mode demoniac purposes. So yeah, that's what I read in Einstein's biography in Wilson Junior High School back in 1971 or something. Yeah, he wasn't pleased by what was being done with his discoveries, his physics discoveries. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Malini?
Hearing Parampara Prabhu's comments and your response and the discussion about Paramatma and Bhagavan.
Yeah.
For many years, when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada insists we should make the difference between Paramatma and Atma, Paramatma and Atma, 13th chapter. In so many places, Prabhupada puts that. And for quite many years, I was annoyed by it. Why he says that? It's obvious. It's obvious that, Atma, Paramatma is different. Why is pounding it at home all the time. And I was always asking that question to myself, and I think I discussed it with you even. And hearing Parampara and thinking about the link between the Parampara, like the Paramatma's realization and Bhagavan, I was thinking, like, if I take it to my level, because okay, there is a level of the yogis, there is a level of the Mayavadis, and there is a level of us. And Srila Prabhupada is really speaking to us. So there is a reason Prabhupada found it home so much. And I was thinking, because we constantly identify with Paramatma. Every time I have an idea about something, what do I say? That's my idea. Yeah? Every time I get some intelligence about something, I say, I am intelligent.
I was right.
I was right. So many times. In reality, we get knowledge, we get intuition, we get guidance. And so many times we kind of identify with it and say, it's me. It's not Paramatma giving me guidance. It's not Paramatma giving me intelligence. It's not Paramatma giving me intuition. It's my intuition, So, and I can see in today's discussion, I can see by coming to the level of like, oh, Krishna is kind, or, Krishna in the heart, which is a Vishnu form. Vishnu is so kind, is giving me intelligence. Paramatma is giving me intuition. Paramatma is giving guidance. Paramatma is giving me intelligence to deal with that situation. I can see with turning that around in that way, how it will lead us closer to Krishna and closer to like an intimate, and how Paramatma will transform into Krishna.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that point. Bringing it home, because I think I'm this four-handed form, and that might apply to the yogis. How's that apply to me? But that, yeah, but that Paramatma is the super soul, is the source of knowledge, the source of intuition. And in that sense, yeah, I completely relate.
Forgetfulness.
Yeah, right. So that's, or like, even to think I'm controlling the material energy, because I managed to get up before 8 a.m. or something. but even that's like it's a confusion thinking that I am super soul in a very practical form. Thanks for that. I know there's more sharing and discussion. It's coming to 9:30 here. I think I'll bring it to a close, and we can continue by email or tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.